What is up, Planeswalkers? 3x6 back with some more Magic the Gathering Arena, and today we are jumping in some sweet Jeskai control. Now, you might be saying, Theorix, you were supposed to defeat the dark side, not join them. I don't know if that quote is correct, but, deal with it. Why are you playing things like Teferi? Well, the reason is I've been curious as to whether or not Jeskai control can work in the current meta with the current lands that we have access to, and there have been some decent records achieved, and Wizard does some 5.0 MTGO lists, and they put those up periodically. And I've been seeing some interesting Jeskai control lists circulating around, and I figured I'd give it a shot. Now, I've organized this by counterspells, like card draw / value, kind of single target removal, board wipes, and then win conditions. So we'll get started with our counterspell suite. We definitely want to have a variety of counterspells to make sure we're able to hit as much variety of things as possible. The meta is still relatively liquid. It's still changing. It's mutable right now. So I want to make sure that I can cover as many bases as possible. Typically, you'll find that control decks are better the later into a meta you are, because the questions that you're being asked are more typical, and you'll be able to give your answers a little bit better. So as of right now, I've decided to go a 1-1 split in the main deck of Essence Scatter Negate. There are enough non-creature spells in aggro decks that having something like Negate is still fine there, and there are enough creature spells in control decks, unless it's, of course, like Niv-Mizzet, that this is still fine to use. Except, for example, in the black-based control decks, you're going to likely see the Doom Whisper. So having something like this is still fine. Sinister Sabotage is a very good counterspell. However, the fact that it's blue-blue means that I believe it's technically harder to cast than Ionize at blue-red. The Surveil is very nice. I technically prefer Surveil over the 2 additional damage with Ionize, but we are running a decent enough amount of burn that the 2 damage from Ionize does matter. I've talked in the past through YouTube comments to some people who've asked me why I haven't been using Ionize in certain builds, and typically that's because Ionize didn't do enough in terms of the fact that you're shocking the opponent, whereas Sinister Sabotage, the Surveil, is really important. So in this deck, however, Ionize is slightly better. That's why it's a 3-2 split. Syncopate is still something that we want to have. There is enough kind of like nonsense running around that deals with the graveyard, as you can probably tell by the fact that I'm running a lot of green-black decks in my rotation, that you want to be able to just exile stuff instead of putting it into your opponent's graveyard. Since the graveyard is such a resource right now in this current meta, you really want to be able to just counter something and not have to worry about it coming back in a few turns. So on to our kind of card advantage suite, we have 2 Search for Azcantas. I don't really love 3 in this specific build, which is why obviously I'm running 2. The reason for that is sometimes it just makes your mulligans clunky, and depending on the matchup, the mulligans are clunky anyway. Against control, really all you need to do is hit your land drops. So getting to an Azcanta super quickly isn't nearly as important as it may have been in previous rotations. So we only really want 2 of them. That said, I can't like under showcase the strength of this card. You are able to surveil essentially every turn and pseudo ramp once you do get to Azcanta, which is not hard to do in this style of deck. Mission briefing, I was surprised that a single mission briefing went so far, but the ability to just like have an additional counterspell when you're up on 5 mana and your opponent is just playing not like a bunch of stuff is really valuable. The ability to flashback something like a Justice Strike, something like having more Settle the Wreckages, right? Just the ability to keep utilizing things in your graveyard after you use them already is just very valuable. So I like this as a 1-of. It theoretically could be cut once the meta starts being a little bit more resolved, a little bit more solved, I should say. But for right now, I think 1 is pretty good. 3 Chemister's Insight, that's essentially the other slot this is taking. Chemister's Insight, you just want to be able to draw cards, especially against control decks. You want to be able to just have counter magic up at the end of their turn, and if they decide not to do anything that turn, you can just draw cards, so you're not wasting your time. Lightning Strike it's fine, creature removal, which is really the main reason why it's in here. But because we are running Ionizes, because we are running Niv-Mizzet and Expansion Explosion, we do deal some damage to our opponent, and sometimes you will top deck a Lightning Strike and kill your opponent with it, and that's why it's good. But against most matchups, you are just going to be sending it to a creature. Justice Strike, I was so surprised at how strong this card is. It hits so many problem creatures that are super strong. If your opponent is playing like incredibly valuable creatures, you're able to just remove them with a single card this hits low drop creatures, it hits mid-tier creatures, it hits the majority of high-end creatures, right? This card is just very versatile in what it does. Obviously, you still can't hit Carnage Tyrant. If you're running up against a lot of Carnage Tyrants, I do suggest that you run Detection Tower. I'm not currently running it because I'm not running up against a ton of them, and I've instead decided to have a Field of Ruin. As of right now, I wouldn't suggest running an additional colorless land. I did for a little bit run Arch of Araska, but I found that the control matchup really was shored up by having 3 expansion explosions and a ton of counterspells, so we didn't really ever need this. And Field of Ruin is just helpful for getting rid of Azcanta. Detection Tower, I would say, take out if you're finding more Carnage Tyrants and your control matchup is fine, but Just Strike is very, very strong. Deafening Clarion is why this deck can survive. The fact that red and some green decks come out so quickly means we really do need something to destroy a lot of creatures really early on, and Deafening Clarion does that to the best degree. If you have to, you can do it when you have Niv-Mizzet out. It's not going to happen very often, but sometimes you are able to get back in the game against a like red burn deck. But for the most part, this is going to just destroy the board of tokens, destroy the board of red-white, even Boros potentially, depending on how late they go. That said, this does have diminishing returns, just like every other kind of damage-based board wipe. At a certain point, this is just not going to kill things. Against the mono-green deck that's running Steelleaf Champion, luckily there's not a ton of those running around, it doesn't seem like, you're not going to be able to kill that, right? And if your opponent goes turn 1 Elf, turn 2 Champion, then Deafening Clarion looks kind of like a dead card in your hand. Settle the Wreckage is there to fight a little bit against the green-black decks. Obviously, a lot of players know about Settle the Wreckage, they're going to be able to play around it, but being able to exile something is very nice. I'm only running 1 because Settle the Wreckage still isn't like that amazing against the green-black decks, and the reason why is the green-black decks, as of right now at least, are running so much value that isn't necessarily tied with the graveyard, right? They're still able to do so much card selection, so much just having creatures ETB with a lot of value, that even settling the wreckage so that they're not able to get that graveyard value, they're still getting value out of their cards. So it's not a terribly strong card. I believe I put... No, I didn't. I put Seal Aways. You could, if you're running up against a lot of super heavy graveyard strategies, run some extra Settle the Wreckages. Frankly, there are other cards that you can run if you really want to shore up the graveyard matchup. You can put in, I think it's called like Solemn Gravestone or something like that, and it'll help fine. But as of right now, I think 1 Settle the Wreckage is where I want to be. I also have 2 Cleansing Novas. Again, if you're running against a ton of creatures, you might want to cut down on or a ton of like go wide strategies. You might want to cut down on the counterspells and go up on the Cleansing Nova. But as I have right now, I think this amount of board wipes, six board wipes of different sizes, are good. And as I said with the counterspell matchup, or the counterspell suite, sorry, this deck's individual pieces will become a little bit more solidified once the meta settles. So if you're running up against a ton of decks that are super aggro, you're probably going to want 4 Deafening Clarions, right? If it's super graveyard based, you're going to want more Settle the Wreckages. If there are more like big end creatures that you don't really attack in early, Cleansing Nova is probably where you want to be because it has a nice flexibility for. But as of right now, this is a fine setup. I'm running 3 Teferis and 1 Ral. I've seen a lot of decks run 2 and 2. I've seen some run 3 and 2. I've seen a lot just run only Teferis. I do like Ral a little bit, but I mean Teferi's Teferi. I don't think I have to talk too much about it. You draw a card and untap, leaving the ability to counter something or kill it with our 2 mana removal. You can tuck pretty much anything that you have a problem with, and if you get to the emblem, your opponent has just lost, essentially. Ralzeric, very similarly, it allows you to draw cards, unfortunately. So you have a bit of a trade-off. You get card selection as opposed to just drawing a random card, but you don't have the added value of being able to do something. Frankly, for that reason, Tezzeret is still better, or Teferi is still better, but Ral is fine. He also just has straight-up removal. Teferi can get rid of different things, more varied things, but Ral is going to be able to permanently get rid of something as long as it doesn't have hexproof. But I mean, Teferi couldn't get rid of that anyway. And once again, with Ral's emblem, you're going to be able to win the game if you get this off, pretty much. I have 1 Niv-Mizzet main, and the reason I have a single 1 main is because I think the control matchup is fine. I don't really think we need too much help against control, so I'm only running 1. That you really want it against other control decks. And if you're able to resolve and protect a Niv-Mizzet, your opponent has pretty much lost at this point. You draw so many cards incidentally, and when they try to remove it, that you're just going to be able to burn them to death so quickly. You don't even ever need to attack if you feel like you're going to walk into a Settle or a Seal Away, but the fact that you can just dome your opponent is great. Expansion Explosion, I'm so happy this card is good. Shout out to Chaotic Revenge, who's like talked about this card since day one on my Discord. This card can copy a burn spell from a red deck and use it to destroy one of the creatures. It can copy counter spells if you need to, if you're in a counterspell war, and then late game you just dome your opponent and draw more cards to dome your opponent. It's such an incredibly strong finisher. It's very similar to Sphinx's Revelation, very similar to kind of Rakdos' Return, in that like it just scales so incredibly well, and it really keeps your gas going and allows you to win the game. This is the mana base right now. As you can see, there's a ton of rare lands. There currently isn't the Hallowed Fountain, which I think we would prefer, but I'm sure this deck will just get better once Ravnica Allegiant, I think is what it's called, comes out when we get the Hallowed Fountains. But this is the mana base as of right now. I think it's fine. We typically don't have any problems. Sometimes we do have to take damage where I otherwise wouldn't like to. And then I'm just gonna talk really briefly about the sideboard here. 2 Seal Aways are essentially to help against the kind of mono green matchup where opponent is hitting very fast with really large things. So kind of we take out Deafening Clarions and put in Seal Aways. It also helps against the Golgari matchup. Disdainful Stroke essentially just comes in against super big decks. We will bring this in against Control as well as higher end mid-range. Negates against mid-range decks that we know are going to be playing a lot of enchantments, Find Finalities, for example, as well, and Control decks. Lava Coil, pretty much any deck we want to be killing things. So the super aggro matchup will bring those in and take out some of the higher end, maybe some of the counter spells that are a little slow. Justice Strike, very similarly to a Lava Coil. Sorcerer's Spyglass is a nice way to deal with really annoying things. Mostly Planeswalkers. You could theoretically do Izoni just to make sure that you don't get a bunch of value from them. Of note, you can name any card. So this does also get rid of Memorial to Folly loops. So you can make it so your opponent isn't able to loop something like Memorial to Folly. Invoke the Divine, I have a single one, just to get rid of some pesky enchantments. Eldersporn's running around, other search for Azcantas. If we resolve a Niv-Mizzet in our opponent's Ixalan's Bindings, that we can go ahead and get rid of it. So, Fiery Cannonade, if we're finding that our opponent is just like super fast, then we want to cut down some of our top end, probably cut down a Nova, and just bring in Fiery Cannonades because we don't want to die. Ixalan's Binding, very similar to like Sorcerer Spyglass. This is what you bring in when you're facing an opponent who has a lot of value cards. Azor and Niv-Mizzet, as well as Banefire, are all in for the control matchup. You just take out some of your removal, some of your board wipes, and you just bring in some really hard and annoying threats. Azor is great because your opponent can't answer it on their immediate next turn, which means that you're going to be able to untap and probably have a counterspell, so you're going to be able to keep it alive most likely and just start doming your opponent. Niv-Mizzet, as I said, he's great. And Banefire is just a nice way to finish your opponent off. I was going to originally do competitive play, but unfortunately, I had guests over today. We carved pumpkins and ate pumpkin seeds and pumpkin pie. So I am kind of tired. I am an introvert, for those of you who don't know, so I'm like very fatigued. We're going up against Lieslo right now. But it's like super late. It's substantially later than I typically record, but I really wanted to get this video out because I really like this video, sorry, I really like this deck, and I wanted to like make sure I was able to do something with it. So, all right, interesting. Our opponent might be Control. They had the Guildgate, so I'm not sure. This was a fine hand. We had spells to play and lands to cast, and we'll go ahead and play this. Our opponent's looking more and more like the Izzet Control deck that I've seen. Yeah, I mean this is a nice hand, right? We have plenty of counterspells. We have some removal, right? This is all we want. Now all we need is something like Search. So now we're gonna be able to cast the Search for Azcanta. Hopefully, I don't try and counter it. If they do, I probably will fight over this. Ionize. Yeah, I think I do fight over this. I want to make sure that I can. So I have kind of put my shields down, but I have 2 removal spells. I should be fine. And they're not on 5 mana, importantly. If this was turn 4, I wouldn't have cast that, so that's fine. We did allow them to resolve theirs, but we want to make sure we can just get the cards that we're looking for. Our opponent has priority right now, and I'm curious as to what they can do. They might have Jumpstart, the Radical Idea. We have enough counterspells, I think. We're just going to graveyard that. Yeah. we just wanted more mana. And in these control matchups, I really found that what you're looking for is just making your land drops every turn and just outvaluing your opponent. Blink of an Eye is an interesting decision here. Our opponent could have kept that. Here we're going to Sinister... we're going to Sinister Sabotage because it's technically harder to cast. I would like to keep Expansion Explosion on top. I have to do it again. Sure. But I'm fine drawing this. I do kind of lose a land drop there, but it's fine. 4? Sure. So they got rid of a counterspell. Very interesting. So yeah, this is just the Izzet deck. This isn't the... So that can't be countered, which is unfortunate, but we can just kill it with Justice Strike. So they're going to draw a card. So this is I mean, this is why Niv-Mizzet's great, right? I'm just going to kill that now. This is why Niv-Mizzet's great, right? They essentially got nothing lost, right? They have a card, and I'm down a card. So, I'll keep that on top. I just want to keep making land drops. Obviously, if they have another Niv-Mizzet, it's going to be pretty bad. But they're down to 4. Shock. Yeah, that's fine. Let's do that on my turn, which is weird. They did that before. Oh, okay, so they could flip it. That's reasonable. Sure. Sure. And this card is as a potential include in this style of deck, but I don't think it is right now. I think you have to wait until you have better mana. Will I fight over this? Yeah, I think it's reasonable to fight over this. Like, the Niv-Mizzets aren't going to get countered. They might have Ral, but I could just kill Ral with Explosion, depending on what it decides to do. So I think I'm fine fighting over that. Yeah, they didn't have a Ral this turn, so. I think I'll actually keep that. I'm fine doing Explosion for 2. Having another Explosion, yeah, I think that's fine. We'll just pass the turn here. I will say a lot of this is going to be just like kind of doing nothing, draw go style thing. But let's see what our opponent gets here. Okay, they have a counterspell. Thousand-Year Storm. Interesting. I didn't expect that. I'm gonna try and get them to use their counterspell. So I can do this for 2. Now I'll draw some cards. Because I can Cleansing Nova. Oh, nope, they let me have that. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's reasonable. We'll go and graveyard that and transform that. Now we're getting too many lands. Can I Cleansing Nova Expansion? I can. So I can just blow this up now. I'm not sure if I need to, though. My opponent only has 2 cards. One of them is a counterspell. And I don't really want to use my Explosion. I do have Azcanta. I don't know. This is one of those ones where it's kind of difficult for me to decide. I think I'm... The problem is, as long as my opponent has access to Azcanta, I can't really benefit. So I think I am just going to do this now. Yeah. So I assume they're going to counter it. And then the correct decision here isn't to copy Cleansing Nova. It's to copy their counterspell. Because of the fact that we will get... Does it have to target instant? Oh, right, it's 4. I'm special. Yeah. Field of Ruin is actually great here, because we can get rid of their Azcanta. Goodbye. Alright, cool. So our shields are down, but we can Field of Ruin getting rid of their Azcanta. That's real bad. We're gonna blow that up. We're gonna see if we can get anything. I would love a Justice Strike. Well, that's awkward. I guess I'll get a Sabotage. The problem is Niv-Mizzet is going to be a big problem here. Yeah, and at this point they can probably just protect the crap out of it. Let's go ahead and look again. Deafening Clarion doesn't do anything. Mission Briefing does, but it's going to cost us so much like so many cards, right? I won't even be able to Sinister Sabotage. Wow, dang. I mean, my opponent almost certainly just has counter magic up. And like, even if they don't, they're gonna draw it, right? I could have done it on their turn, but then they have even more. Interesting. I can't expect this to go through, I don't think. So I think I have to do this. Cast this now. I'm going to be at 9 if my opponent does counter it. Be at 8. Next turn I'll be at 7. Oh no, I'm just dead. No, they're drawing to draw. Yeah. I mean, this is what I was talking about, right? Niv is so strong because you're able to just burn your opponent down with the cards that you're casting, like, anyway. Like I went from 11 to 2, and they had the counter, and I'm dead. Yeah, I mean, this really just goes to show the strength of Niv-Mizzet in these control mirrors. If you're able to just have one resolve, and I mean, it can't be countered, but if you're able to have one resolve and have protection up for it, it's just going to take away the game. So technically, this would be where we go to sideboard, but I do want to show other matchups and kind of control decks do tend to go a little bit long. So up against Aqua here. Makes sense, he's Jace. This is an interesting hand. This is an interesting, unkeepable hand, I think. We don't have white for our Deafening Clarions, so we functionally have nothing in our hand. This one's real hard. Like, if we had one other land or one of these come in untapped, I mean, this is really the problem with only having 8 of the shocks, is that you'll just have situations like this where you have to run like 4 of a playset of these, and you'll just get in this bad situation. I'll keep. That's like so good, especially since we're going second. Especially since it looks like our opponent is on some sort of red. So next turn we can go and play Glacial Fortress. Sure. And we're probably not going to end up negating here. We're probably going to end up Justice Striking something. But we do have Negate up. And we will take damage if they attack us first, because we don't want them to resolve a History of Benalia. We would much rather negate that. So, yeah, they definitely should attack us first, and we're going to take the damage. Another Knight of Grace, that's fine. I'm actually just going to let that happen. So because they did that, and they don't have an additional land, this Deafening Clarion is much better. And I can save the Justice Strike for another creature. It does put my shields down if they do top deck land into history, but yeah, looks like they didn't. So I will say I did get lucky with that mana draw. But you know, luck does play a role in Magic. You have to know when to keep certain hands. And I mean, both my opponent and I aren't drawing cards. I don't know who that favors. I do have counterspells, so I assume it favors me. But, I mean, time will tell. Both of us just not doing anything. My opponent even has to discard. So I guess they're on Boros Knights? Yeah, they're on Boros Knights. Darn. So I'm going to have to discard too. What do I discard? I guess like Cleansing Nova? I can't cast Sinister Sabotage yet. but I still like it. I think Cleansing Nova. That could be super wrong. But I don't know. Lightning Strike me. Well, I guess I can just negate that? Sure. It's possible I should have syncopated that. No, negate. Syncopate. So the reason it's actually better to just negate that is Syncopate hits anything, whereas negate only hits non-creatures. So if my opponent plays a creature, I can syncopate it. Whereas if they like just played a creature, I wouldn't necessarily be able to do anything. Yay, we got another land. Cool. Alright. Going up in the world. My opponent might risk factor. That's another reason to save Syncopate, to be honest. Against these red decks, you know, you really want to make sure that you're exiling their risk factors when they're trying to cast them on you. And I don't know, like, my opponent has 4 mana. I don't know what he can't cast here. So, we have, like, no reason to start. Like, this game favors us going late, I'm almost certain. Now that we have started drawing lands. Right? Like, we have 4 spells of theirs that they can't resolve. We have Justice Strike to get rid of essentially anything that we want. Lightning Strike? I don't care about a single Lightning Strike. We definitely want to be smart with where we're positioning our counterspells. Especially since we only have 2 blue. Lyra is a great card to counter. We don't need to Syncopate or Ionize, so we're just going to Sinister Sabotage to try and get another land off the top. That's not another land, but it's not the counterspell. I'm kind of fine just drawing another counterspell. I still think we're favored late game. Just because of the sheer amount of counterspells we have, and the fact that red-white doesn't really have a non-counterable thing, I don't think. Resplendent. I think we should Ionize. I think the reason we Ionize here is because we still have the ability to Syncopate if we need to. And for those of you who are curious, the reason that asked us to resolve or not is because of the fact that we have Expansion Explosion, so they give us a chance to use it, which they didn't before, so I'm really glad they added that to the game. With Teferi, we do only have access to Syncopate, essentially. But I think putting our shields down for a single turn just to start getting the card advantage engine going is good. The reason we untap like this is to make sure we still have the ability to Justice Strike. Damn, can't Syncopate that for 1? Yeah, that's fine. I mean, if we get back our second Cleansing Nova, we can just get rid of that. But it's fine. Especially since we can start drawing cards with Chemister's Insight. Yeah, I think pretty much we have this game in the bag, unless something like super bad goes wrong. Something super awful. I could Syncopate this for 2. No, that wouldn't allow me to do it, so I'm going to go ahead and set Sinister Sabotage. Allows me to scry. I can't cast Teferi to bounce this, so I will just dump it in the yard, I think. Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I mean, I can't use it. Cool, another Glacial Fortress. It's possible I should have just waited to cast the Teferi until I had true counter magic up. So, I guess that's reasonable. I don't think red has a bunch of flash stuff, so. Cool, got to search for Azcanta. Don't think I need more red. I will say that I don't think I need that much blue, though. Cool. Pass turn. I could dump this mountain. End of turn? Yeah, I think that's reasonable. History of Benalia. Well, that seems incredibly rude. And now we'll go ahead and use the Syncopate. Does mean that we are a little weaker to risk factor as of right now, but shouldn't be too bad. And graveyard that. And we will transform. Go and play Retreat. And pass turn. Let's see, at this point, this costs 4 and X, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we can deal 6 and draw 6. Knight of Grace, that's fine. Dies to Clarion. And is that what I want to do? Yeah. So I can do this for 6. That is to burn. This is to draw. And we have like too many cards, but not really a problem. Go and play this. I can only do it for 6 still. I can just Clarion this if I want to. I think Clarion is better to use here. It uses more mana, but I think it's still more mana efficient. Resolve. Let's see, I have 3. I can play Search and still hold up Essence Scatter and Syncopate, so. Essence Scatter is really what we're going to be caring more about anyway, I think. So, let's go and pass the turn. This Teferi is functionally dead in our hand. But we're in a good spot. Opponent down to 10. At some point, we're going to be able to just burn our opponent. That's kind of the point of this deck, is we just control them until we have a stupid amount of mana. That's why I think we're running 27 lands. Do I want to Insight or do I want to Azcanta? I think I want to Insight. Yeah, drop them out in Insight. Oh, look, it's more lands. Let's graveyard it. Decline the transform because this is legendary. You gotta make sure you're careful with that. And we'll just pass the turn. End of turn, we can dome them. And then next turn, we can mission briefing dome them. That is something I forgot to mention during the... this we have to get rid of. So we have to Syncopate for 3. Because, and very importantly, the win condition in this deck really is Expansion Explosion. And Socialize just stops that off because it gives them hexproof. So that does mean that we're not going to be able to dome them here. Lightning Strike, don't even remotely care. We can dome them for 4, and then next turn, mission briefing, dome them for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, yeah, we can do it. So we dome them for 4 here. Gotta always look for lethal, man. And then either we draw another one, which we did, or we could have just mission briefinged and had enough. Graveyard decline. Just planes. Let's do this. Just do it for 6. And target them from both. Usually the last one you do, just target it. Them, just so you don't overdraw. But yeah. Jeskai Control. It's good. I'm surprised at how strong it is, but honestly, Deafening Clarion, I think is what kind of saves it, because there's so much early game aggression going on right now. I'm going to go and buy a pack. Yeah, 2 Guilds of Ravnica. And a duplicate Izoni. Alright. Well, I hope you all enjoyed that. I would like to thank EasyMode, DizzyFam, Radberry, Kyoshin, Ox, Daniel, Flowerchild, Chow, Odi3, Zaraga, and Mad Cause Bad for their support on Patreon. If you'd like to join them supporting the channel, you'll find links to that in the description below. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. If you did, go and tap that like button. If you... Wait. As you can tell, I'm a little delirious. It's a lot later than I usually record. Add a subscription to Mana Pool, cast a comment in the comment section down below, and until next time, all will be one.